What is up, fellow sickos? I am Dan Favale coming at you once again from the future because I just talked to Jason Patt, the editorial director at Clutch Points and also the co-host of the Cash Considerations podcast with Ricky O'Donnell. We just talked about the Chicago Bulls. It's their turn to go under the Lookahead microscope for this coming season. Very quickly, just be sure to follow Jason on Twitter at Bulls_J. That's at BULLS_JAY. It'll also be on screen and in the podcast and YouTube descriptions. Conversation was great. We get into all things Bulls, individual players, the way that they're going to look into play, their direction, the whole nine. It was fun. Just a very quick reminder or an announcement or news for people that are tuning into us for the first time. Hey, stick around. Subscribe to us across all platforms, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, of course, the whole nine. Comment, like these videos, help the algo love us back. We really do put out a ton of content around these parts if you are new, and we will continue to do so. And if you already been rocking with us for roughly forever, one, thank you. We heart you to infinity and beyond, or to infinity and Benyama. How about that? But also share this. Tell people about us, friends, family members, acquaintances, randos, people on the street, coworkers, your enemies, even. Shout us out on Twitter. I will retweet them. Anything to continue to get the good word of Hardwood Knocks out there. But that's enough out of me. Let's get to talking about the 2024-2025 Chicago Bulls with Jason Patt. Jason, welcome back to the Hardwood Knocks podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I believe, I don't know if you know this, it's your fourth year coming on for the Bulls Look Ahead. So this us running it back is almost a half decade old. How are you feeling knowing with that knowledge in your basket?
I mean, basically running it back kind of like the Bulls did for three years. I guess they didn't make it to the fourth year. Now that we're talking about them actually kind of rebuilding, making moves. I don't know. They've obviously made some moves. They're obviously going in a somewhat different direction. But yeah, I mean, that's crazy. Always love joining you. So thanks for having me again.
Well, I appreciate your time. Don't want to take up too much of it. So we need to dive right in here. And I have to start with this. Before even getting into just the individual moves that happened, what in the actual hell do we make of this offseason? Because I think on its face, it's you got rid of DeRozan and Caruso. So it's, are you taking a longer view? But your asset management of both and the returns are just, I think, confusing would be like the best way to frame it. It's like, what does this offseason say about what the Bulls are trying to do?
Yeah, so I mean, I was hoping that they would pivot. I mean, finally, again, running it back again and again these last couple of years, mediocrity, basically, again, since Lonzo Ball got hurt and he still is not back, although he says he's going to come back this year. We'll see. But I mean, running it back, they did it. They did it at least one too many times. This past season, there was no reason to run it back. Basically, again, with the same core. So like they needed to do this. Of course, the fact that they waited so long to do it is how the asset management gets bungled. Before last trade deadline, Alex Caruso, tons of rumors out there about teams wanting him. I think the Warriors wanted him. There were rumblings about there being first round picks on the table. I don't know about two, but I know there was a rumor about a Warriors offer that was pretty substantial, and they turned it down. I mean, and also we've even go to as Andre Drummond too is gone. There were rumors that they had 2 second round picks at least on the table from the Sixers. They didn't take that, and they ends up signing with the Sixers anyways, which is hilarious. And the DeMar situation too. Obviously DeMar was great for the Bulls this past season. I mean, again, he was really good. He saved their ass in a bunch of games, and they still only won 39 games, of course, and couldn't even get out of the play-in tournament. But DeMar, I mean, they could have tried selling him at the deadline. They could have. I mean, honestly, I've mentioned this on our podcast before, Cash Considerations, that a year and a half ago, basically 2 deadlines ago, the Bulls were 7 games under 500 like that or something like that. They were going nowhere. They could have kind of just pivoted then. I'm sure DeMar with a year and a half left, still playing good. Get something for him then. Get something of value then. Maybe you trade Caruso then too. They could have gotten something great for Caruso at the deadline, at this past deadline. Either way, they had multiple outs to pivot. They didn't do it. The reasoning behind it, the front office has said this year, we owed it to DeMar to keep him around and go for the playoffs. What? Stupid. Very dumb. And that's obviously why they kept Caruso too. And then with the actual moves that happened, Caruso for Giddey, I know when that trade happened, I was like, oh, let's wait to see the draft pick compensation. None. Zero, of course. There's just straight up The Bulls clearly targeted Josh Giddey at like his lowest point of value after he got benched by the Thunder in the playoffs. But they really like him. He'll probably put up good stats. Well, I know we'll talk more about him later. And then with DeMar, like at this point, again, he's hitting a free agency. They got Chris Duarte and like a second round pick, whatever it was, 1 second round picks, I don't even remember how many picks, but the actual like first round asset went to the Spurs because the Bulls didn't want to take on Harrison Barnes's contract because of the luxury tax stuff. So like you could argue the Spurs basically got like the best asset out of that deal. When they probably could have gotten, I mean, maybe they could have gotten a first for DeMar. Again, two deadlines ago. Maybe they could have gotten something better for him. A last deadline, but no, I mean, they owed it to DeMar to go for it. And what did they have to show for it? Not even making the playoffs the last 2 years, losing in that second play-in game, and not a whole lot of assets because you're going in this rebuild now, but you're like not really getting. You have like no real plus assets. Like maybe Josh Giddey turns into one. Again, we'll talk about him later. Pretty skeptical.
They're technically down assets, right? Because of that pick that probably won't convey to the Spurs, but could. Like, don't they still owe that 2025 pick?
Yes, that too. And that's going to be a big part of this upcoming season is they owe a top 10 protected pick to the San Antonio Spurs for when they got DeMar in 2021. So they do have incentive to be bad this year. So like the pivot, I think, is a good direction, but they waited so long to do it. They kind of screwed themselves with their asset management. And now you're kind of playing from behind with this rebuild. And the front office has said like, oh, like we're not really rebuilding. Like we're kind of rebuilding, but like we're getting experienced young players in here to rebuild. Like they've said they don't really want to play through the draft, which is troubling. So like it is kind of confusing what they're actually trying to do. Again, I do like that they moved on from DeMar. Bringing DeMar back would have just signaled the same thing. Again, DeMar was great. He was so much better than I would have expected him when they signed him to that deal. So many people mocked that signing, 3 years, 81, like, oh, that's way too much for DeMar. Mm-hmm. And he outplayed that deal. He earned the contract he got from the Kings. It's just the Bulls were right to not give that to him. But again, they waited so long. At least they got something instead of him straight walking, but it still wasn't that much. And now they're still trying to trade Zach LaVine. They're still trying to trade Nikola Vucevic. And it's just kind of like a weird place with the team right now. But yeah, long way of saying I'm not really sure what's going to happen and what like their actual goals are for the next like year or two, but they do have incentive to be bad. Again, with that top 10 protected pick, I want them to be bad this year. And if they can be fun bad this year and they keep that pick and it stays in the top 10, I would be totally happy with that.
So when you look at this team, then what is the storyline or whatever that you're going to be following, the biggest storyline you're going to be following most closely throughout the season?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think that people will be tracking the draft pick. It's going to be a big one. Like, if you're like I mean, they're rebuilding. They want to say, oh, they're not like rebuilding. You're rebuilding. Like DeMar's gone. You're trying to trade Zach LaVine. You're trying to get rid of Nikola Vucevic, even though they're still here. Like they clearly don't want. Zach doesn't want to be here. He hasn't wanted to be for a long time. Vuce is 34. He's on the decline. Like those guys are going to be on their way out too. Like they're rebuilding. So like losing a pick this year would be really hard to swallow. Like the only way that would be good is, so I guess this kind of plays into the other storyline. Like, are there the young guys they do have? Like, are they going to take a big leap? Is like Josh Giddey they're going to make him the starting point guard? Like, is he going to find his game again? Is Patrick Williams going to take the much awaited leap? Is Coby White going to take another step forward after finishing second in most improved player voting? Ayo Dosunmu, another good young player. Like, are those guys going to step forward? And like, can they make the Bulls? Would they make the Bulls good enough to lose that pick? Like, if that happened, like you could maybe stomach like them if they were good enough to finish outside the top 10, maybe. And then I mean, of course, like the Vuce and Zach stuff will be something to follow all year too. Zach, again, we'll talk about those situations individually in a bit, but yeah, keeping the pick while developing young guys is basically story of the season for me.
I want to ask this just because this has the potential to become most dated of anything we're going to talk about. Do you think like perception, we talked about this a little bit last year too, has veered a little bit too far away from Zach LaVine being a, useful player? Because I get the reputation, I get the defensive stuff, I get never making like a quote unquote leap as a passer, even though the assist numbers can be there. I get that he's just never been a part of a good team, but I still just, maybe I'm naive, but I just want to see, I look at his contract and I don't care. That's one. Like, I just don't care. And then two, am I naive to just be like, I'd love to just see what he looks like outside of the incompetent version of Minnesota and then whatever the fuck this Bulls team was, like organization was, while he was there.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it has like gone swung the other way. I mean, because there was like the stuff where this offseason they're like, oh, the Bulls are gonna like have to include a first round pick or like even multiple to like get off his deal. Like, I get the deal is not good, but like as the whatever the cap is gonna be rising with this new media rights agreements that are coming in, like that's gonna take big jumps. So then the future max contracts are gonna be much bigger. And in like a year or two, like his again, yeah, he's got what 3 years, 140 million or whatever it is left. Like that's a lot for a guy has not stayed healthy the last couple of years, or he's had some surgeries. He's obviously wanted out, and like last year, he just did not look good because he didn't really want to be there, and he was also hurt. So like, I get like his value is certainly like not looking good, but like if he comes back and like I've seen some videos of him this summer, like he's looking pretty good, great, and but if when healthy, like 2 years ago, he ended the year really, really strong. If you look at like the last couple months of and 2 seasons ago, like, I mean, he was putting up, I think 25, 26, 27 a game pretty efficiently. He basically won them that Raptors playing game. Don't look at the stats from the Heat playing game, but
We can't. Don't
overall,
those things just who even tracks? I've never even looked at playing stats. Who
I know.
tracks those?
It was funny because, yeah, that like Raptors playing game, I think he had like 30 some points, say the big comeback, and then the Heat game, he was like 3 of 15 from the field or something. That was almost like quintessential Zach, just like consistency not always there. But I mean, still, he was mostly consistent that second half of the year. And then last year was just a mess. Like, again, the team started terribly. He didn't want to be there. I mean, he's been there like 7-8 years now. And for a guy to be on a team this bad for this long and be like an all-star caliber player is like kind of crazy that he's just still on this team. So like, you understand why he wanted out. And then he like came back from the injury and then was like kind of was whatever. And then whatever, he had foot surgery. I know people were like, oh, like he heard he was going to go to the Pistons and he was like, I'm just going to get surgery. I don't think that's actually true, but I know people have their conspiracies. But long way of saying, I do think he's kind of underrated at this point. Like, there's no way it should take like multiple picks to like get off of him. He's still useful. You send him to a lot of these teams, like he still can really help you as a really good shooter and a guy who can drive and score efficiently. I understand second apron and all the new CBA rules and like the team building stuff is a bit more difficult to take. A guy who's making 45 million a year, and if he's like your third best player, I know that can be kind of tough, but I would still think you could at least make a value neutral trade for him. So like ultimately, like I do think some of the negativity towards Zach is over the top. I know there's also been the stuff that's like, oh, he's like hard to play with. Like I know there were rumors about him and DeMar not meshing that great, and like there was some stuff about him and Billy Donovan. Like just that I think he was kind of. I know he got upset a couple years ago about him getting benched in crunch time. I was at that game and it was one of the worst games he's ever played. He absolutely deserved to be benched. But like there have been rumors that he's like kind of held that grudge against Billy. So like whatever, the stuff about maybe not the best teammate, not the most coachable, but I don't know. I mean, from most of the things you see, like he's kept a pretty good face during a lot of losing. He's been through a lot of losing in his career. Some of that is his fault. He is not an alpha guy. Like he's not a guy that's gonna like raise your floor really high. But like I think he could raise the ceiling of some contenders. So like so I was hoping like, oh, maybe if the teams missed out on maybe their top targets, they could turn to Zach LaVine. Clearly that hasn't happened yet. He's gonna have to come back and show that he can still play this season. It will be interesting how he kind of fits into the roster, but yeah, we will see. It's definitely gonna be something to watch.
Would you mentioned like a net neutral trade where it's like if the Warriors, the Lakers are coming calling with just basically shorter term contracts or some expiring contracts, and maybe a Moses Moody is in there. In the Lakers case, like maybe nobody's. I don't even know if they would put Dalton Connect in there, but are you at the point where I don't view Zach LaVine as like someone who could sabotage the development of others because he can do so much off the ball, but like just to ensure that the Bulls are kind of all in on the players that matter more to them long term, would you consider making a like where you're just not getting a pick or the equivalent of a pick?
Right. Like I would love to get a first, but I mean, based on how the league apparently views him, like it just doesn't seem like that might be realistic. I mean, maybe some team gets desperate. I mean, I would take, Moody, who's kind of like a young guy who maybe hasn't gotten the best opportunity. Maybe he can, in a rebuilding situation, maybe he can flourish. Like I would absolutely, if it was, I know, like what was the rumor that was out there? Like the Bulls it was like Zach for like CP3 and Wiggins, I think, and I think the Warriors turned it down. Was I think the rumor
That
that was
honestly, maybe the Warriors still thought they were going to get like Paul George or Larry Markkinen, but if the Bulls said we'll take, let's say GP2, Kevon Looney, Wiggins, and like if you had to include Moody in there, I think the Warriors are bonkers for not doing that personally.
Yeah.
One, because I'm a Moses Moody like diehard, and the fact that they just haven't really given him enough run, I just want to see him free. But yeah, if they said no to that, I think that's stupid too. So
yeah. So yeah, but like to answer the question of the value neutral, yes. I think it's just at this point they just need to part ways. Again, he's been on the team now 7-8 years, and like
it's been 7 years. Oh my god.
Yeah, I mean,
how old are we?
Yeah, no, Jimmy Butler trade 2017. Like it's absolutely crazy. So like I think that just both sides just need the split. Again, Zach, he's been a pretty good soldier throughout all this time and all this losing. But he clearly doesn't want to be here anymore. And I get it. Like the team has not been good almost every year he's been here. Wants to go to a better situation. I mean, he's 29, 30 now at this point, and he's had these knee surgeries. Like I get it. So like I don't begrudge him at all for wanting out. I know there was reporting out there that like AK was not happy that Zach kind of went to them and said, I want out. It's like, well, why not? Like whatever, man. Like he's trying to take his future in his own hands. He's been through a lot of losing. Like it's totally fine. It's not like he's causing a scene or anything. So like if there's a value neutral trade where you don't have to give up assets to do it, why? Yes, I think they just need to kind of part ways and kind of break this thing off finally. So again, if he can play well enough, I guess, to start the season, maybe it'll happen. Maybe it'll take another season to where he's only got 2 years left on that deal. I believe he does. I think he's got a player option on that last year. I mean, maybe it will take another full season of showing that he's healthy. But if something comes to the table where, again, they're not giving up something like important for him, I think you just kind of got to move on.
I don't have any strong thoughts about Vooch, really. So
I
just
do.
a very simple answer. Who is more likely to be on this team past the trade deadline, Zach LaVine or Vooch?
That's kind of tough. My strong thought is I just need Vooch gone because I can't stand watching him on the Bulls anymore. And just like I feel like he's gonna kind of get in the way. Like you talk about how like Zach won't kind of like sabotage anything. Like I think Zach can theoretically fit in with what I think they kind of want to play fast. Like, oh, here's Josh Giddey. We're going to have him just get out on the break and like pass the ball all over the place to Zach, to Coby, and do all that. Vucevic, we know he's a plotter, wants his post touches. He hasn't shot well at all in the last few years. So like just does not seem like he's a fit at all for what they're going for at this point. It's like I just need him out of here. I'm sick of watching him play. Like he's obviously bad at defense too. Like he can still put up numbers. So ultimately, again, back to your question, like with Zach's contract, I do wonder if he's still going to make it through the season. And they do find Vooch. Vooch is making $20 million a year. He's got that third guaranteed year, which there's no hindsight at how bad that contract was when they signed it. I said when I saw it was 3 years, $60 million for Vooch, absolutely terrible when they signed it, proving to be true, especially this offseason when we see Jonas Valanciunas, who's around the same age, probably around the same quality player. He signed for basically half of that. Why you gave Vooch 3 years, $60 million, fully guaranteed, when they were clearly could have like pivoted away from this roster. Absolutely insane. But for $20 million, if they could, for a year and a half of Vooch with somebody who needs a big man, maybe trade for him, I could see maybe that over someone to, again, take Zach's contract to so big. So I guess I would guess Vooch could be traded first, or like and Zach would make it through the year. It just seems, just based on all the reporting, like people, I can say Zach's underrated based on what people around the league seem to think of him. It seems like everyone does not want any part of Zach LaVine, and just I do wonder if the Bulls will not take a neutral trade. Maybe they would, but like if they're like going to be holding out for all, we need at least like one first round pick or like one good young player, like, and if no one just gives it to him, like he might have to play the full season. So I guess I kind of think both will end up being gone by this deadline, but I kind of think that Zach would have a better chance of making it there. I'll probably be totally wrong about that, but just how big that contract is and how people around the league just seem to feel about him. It's tough.
I guess I just view it as, the view is not great of him, but it does feel like just because there have been teams that have been mentioned that there are at least suitors who are maybe waiting for the Bulls
to
lower their asking price. Whereas Vooch, I don't have a suitor for Vooch. Like this is just I'm not saying he's a terrible player, but like I don't have the team. Like I just like you're not if you're New Orleans who needs a big like sure, but like why not have just kept Jonas
Yeah,
Valanciunas
right.
on the money that he got rather than go out and trade for Vooch.
And with the Vuce thing, something we've talked about, like looking at their roster, the Pelicans, like 1-to-1, there's just no trade the Pelicans and the Bulls can make. Like they have a bunch of high salary guys, and then there's like the one like mid-level contract that would like kind of match up to Vuce is like Herb Jones, and like obviously they're not trading Herb Jones for Nikola Vucevic. Like the other idea is like if they do end up trading Ingram, like can the Bulls get in on a 3-way trade and get Vooch to New Orleans? So like he'd be their big man, and whatever Ingram goes somewhere else. And there's some other salary involved, like maybe that. But yeah, like, why wouldn't they just re-sign Jonas for whatever? What I guess
mid-level, basically,
yeah, basically the mid-level, like 3 years, 30-some million, whatever it was, half of Vooch's annual salary. Like, why not just keep him? So like, yeah, and then like otherwise, yeah, where is he? I mean, I've thought about the Warriors for Vooch too. Like theoretically, like he's still a good passing big man. He can still rebound. Like he'd be better than Kevon Looney. Probably Looney kind of, I feel like it's kind of fallen off a bit.
Yeah, he like aged 20 years in one season. I don't know what happened.
So like there might be a match there because the Warriors do have, I mean, obviously they got some of these young salaries. They have Looney. I can't remember what his salary is, but they have him that they could throw in. Peyton, I think, is making whatever 8-9 million. Like there might be. I know both teams. The Warriors are right up against the hard cap. The Bulls are right up against the tax. So like I know there's like some salary stuff that would have to like fit up just like perfectly to make it work. But I mean, maybe the Warriors, because though I mean the Warriors situation is just so interesting because of with Steph is still playing at a pretty high level, but they strike out on Paul George and Lauri Markkanen. Like they feel like they need to do something. Not that Nikola Vucevic would be that exciting, but again, I think like fitting in Kerr's system would make like as a good passing big man, a strong rebounder, just a guy with size, and they could another guy you can at least, I guess, kind of give the ball to and score not that efficiently, but maybe take a little pressure off Steph. But so like maybe then, but yeah, you look anywhere else and for like. I think I considered the Thunder at some point, but like they got Isaiah Hartenstein, so like that's off the table. Yeah, I don't know who else would want Vooch. So it's that is a problem when it comes to.
I thought about the Spurs as like a backup big behind Wemby if the Bulls would take back Zach Collins or someone, but that's just a weird. I wouldn't trust Pop to not try and play him with Wemby, and I just have no desire to see like Wemby just needs to be the lone big.
Yeah, I mean Vooch is still like a useful player, but he really should be a backup at this point. Again, he's 34, 35, and he can't defend worth a lick. His efficiency has never been that high because he doesn't get to the line, and now his 3-point shooting has fallen off. He puts up the great box score stats, so like kind of masks the ineffectiveness of him overall. So like he should not be playing 30 to 35 minutes a game anymore. That's without question. So like he could help someone as a backup, but again, he's making 20 million this year and 20 million guaranteed next year. So that also does make it tough. So this question is just like, no one wants really either of these guys. So like, Zach is clearly the better player and has a better chance. He's 3 or 4 years younger, has the better chance of helping a team, but that contract is twice as big. So it's just tough. It's just tough to find something that matches up right now. But again, there's a long time between now and the deadline. And maybe Zach looks good. Maybe Vooch helps his numbers. Josh Giddey's going to get Vooch. Maybe some Josh Giddey Vooch pick and roll will do some honestly, damage.
On the Josh Giddey front, it like Vooch almost feels a little bit important because you need spacing around Giddey as of right now. Like I just to make the most of him. So do you think that the Bulls have like, I mean, even signing Jalen Smith helps. Like, it seems like the theory was we're very much going to try and tailor this team to Josh Giddey's strengths and weaknesses, which, you know, that's a choice. But like, do you think that they have assembled like enough spacing to put Josh Giddey in his optimal situation to be, all right, let's really see what Josh Giddey looks like when he has the keys of an offense?
I mean, theoretically, sure. I mean, especially if you do have Zach. I mean, Vooch should not be considered a spacer anymore. I think the last couple of years he's been sub 30% from three, and like
he like takes like 2 or 3 a game though. So
yeah, I think he actually takes like 4, and it's really ugly. It might be 3 or 4. Either way, I don't know if at this point like teams consider him, but still like Jalen Smith, I'm also not totally sure if he can actually shoot. Like if you look at like his career stats, like it's kind of up and down. Like he was obviously, I think he was definitely a Tyrese Halliburton merchant last season. He did shoot well though, and if that is for real, like that should theoretically help. And you got Coby, and Patrick Williams has been a good percentage 3-point shooter. Again, he's sometimes a bit hesitant. The volume's not really there, but percentage-wise, he's like always over 40%. If you got Coby, Zach, Pat, if Vooch can get back over 30%, I guess, and you have Jalen Smith who shot well last year, and like you got Ayo off the bench who shot really well from three. Like I wouldn't consider him like a shooter either, but he's at least pretty capable. Do they have like enough shooting? I mean, probably not. Like they don't have like a guy. I guess with Zach coming back, that does help. And Coby is pretty good too. But I wish they just had like some guy off the bench or a couple guys off the bench.
Lonzo.
Jesus. Sure, why not? If Lonzo plays like a minute this year, I would consider that a win. He says he's going to do it, but who knows? So like, is there really enough? Like, I don't know. I mean, Josh Giddey. I mean, we want to just like use this to talk about Josh Giddey in general. Like, tailoring a team around Josh Giddey, probably not a great idea. Like, is he going to put up some stats this year? Absolutely. Like, we saw him run Australia. Like, he's gonna put up like 17, 7 and 7 or something like that, and like he'll have some fun triple doubles and make some cool passes and like, oh, it's all great, but like, is that going to actually impact winning? Again, I don't care about winning this year, but like long term, if they view Josh Giddey as like foundational piece of the rebuild, like he's going to be the starting point guard for this rebuild moving forward. Like, he still just has so many flaws that, like, is it worth it to tailor a team around Josh Giddey? I mean, he doesn't get to the line. We know he can't shoot very well. I know he's gotten a little better, but he's still
Defenses don't care. That's the thing. There's like, and I talk to people about this all the time. Like, there's a difference between like floor spacing and your shooting percentage, because it's just like defenses don't. And we saw it happen in the postseason. He shot well from three for much of last year, but it's like defenses don't care. They don't view him as a threat. So even if he's like beyond the arc, like he's not spacing the floor for you.
Right. Yeah. And so you're not spacing the floor. It's not a good defensive player. Doesn't really get to the paint. Again, doesn't get to the line. Like he's got like the funky in between game and his like floaters and his runners and shit like that, which great. Like you can hit some shots like that, but like that's not like a sustainable way to like run a high level offense as like the starting point guard. So it's just like, that's very skeptical about Josh Giddey. Am I going to say like he is a finished product? Like, oh, he's like a terrible. No. I mean, some people will say like he's just a terrible player. And like, I mean, he was pretty terrible in some of those playoff minutes. I mean, it's definitely not a good sign when the team gets better around you and then you just fade and ultimately get benched in a playoff.
It says a lot about your ability to adapt.
Yeah, that is not a good sign. That when you have Shea and you have Jalen Williams taking a step forward and Chet plays last year, that basically you need the ball in your hands to be any type of effective. And even with the ball in his hands, like he's not that good. Like a couple years ago when the Thunder obviously took a step forward a couple years ago and they were like 500. And that's when like everyone wants to point to, oh, Josh Giddey's second season, he put up these big stats. But like, I'm pretty sure if you looked at his impact numbers, like some of the on-off stuff, like it wasn't very good. And like the team was still mediocre. And that was with Shea, like turning into like Shea of now.
They were at one point that year, like they were trusting J-Dub to run the non-Shea units more. Like you were more likely to see J-Dub play without both Giddey and Shea than you were likely to see Giddey play without J-Dub and Shea.
Right. So like, again, I'm not going to be totally out on him. I do question like what it seems like they want to, or that seems like they really believe in him. I mean, if you're going to trade Alex Caruso as arguably your best trade chip, you target Josh Giddey at basically like his lowest value for what happened. Like that, they wanted him. Like they could have probably shopped Caruso around for a better package of draft picks. They wanted Josh Giddey, so like they clearly believe in Josh Giddey. They think they can get the most of him. I can have major questions about that thought process, but I'm not going to say that Josh Giddey at what is he 22 only? He's still a very young player. There's still probably some room to grow there. He's going to put up numbers. Obviously, the other question mark there is the contract. He's in a contract year. You got to pay him soon. I really hope they do not extend him this like now.
Would you be surprised if they did though? I'm not even trolling, but like if you're going to target him,
I would be surprised.
You would be surprised. Okay.
Yeah, because I think he's not. I think he like why would he sign a contract right now when he's coming off the year that he did? Like the Bulls would have to offer him a lot. The Bulls have even if they targeted him and like him, there's no reason to offer him a lot right now. Like you haven't seen him play on your team yet. Like if he comes out and is just like not that good this year, but you locked him into this long-term contract, like what are you doing? Like why would you do that? So like it's hard to see them like the sides matching up. Like he's gonna need a prove it year. Like So then he figures, oh, they're going to make me the starting point guard. I'm going to put up some big numbers this year. I'm going to inflate my value, and then they'll pay me big money as a restricted free agent, or they sign him before he hits restricted free agency. That seems like the most likely outcome, and I hope it is. I do have concerns that if he does put up just big numbers, but on a shitty team, and like that they pay him too much, just because, again, question marks about his actual impact on winning down the line. But if he actually has like an actual good season and the Bulls are better than expected, then maybe he'll have actually deserved that big contract. But I just hope they don't do that this offseason.
As you already mentioned, Coby White, second and most improved player. I actually think he ended up being my pick because I had Scotty Barnes and Jalen Johnson ahead of him, and neither of them qualified because of the games played. So I think I ended up picking him. I can't remember. But do you worry at all, just based off like, okay, Zach LaVine's coming back, and now we're gonna put the ball in Josh Giddey's hands, about the Bulls adversely impacting the strides he made last year? Or do you just look at it as he's so good off the catch, he knows how to also just catch and go, not just shoot, that it really shouldn't matter?
So I don't know about like adversely, like him going like backwards in a big way. I think he's good enough now. He's developed his game enough now off the dribble. He's tightened up his handle so much, and he's just gotten way more crafty with the ball. We know he can shoot. I mean, he's kind of streaky still, but he had a really long stretch last season where he was just on fire. I think he just kind of petered off by the end of the year because he was playing 40 minutes a night for like 3 or 4 months, and he's just never played that much. So, like, theoretically, like if he doesn't have quite as much responsibility and he still gets a lot of minutes, like I don't think he'll go backwards. Like, will he take the next step? That could be a question mark with Giddey playing point, with Zach back, and they still have Ayo Dosunmu there. We'll see if Lonzo plays at all. We'll see if Patrick Williams gets more opportunities with the ball. So, like, I'm not really that worried about Coby taking a step back. I am curious if he can take another step forward, or if like what we saw last season was his peak, which would be totally fine, because a couple of years ago I was calling for them to trade Coby White. I thought he was like nothing. It's like, oh, he's nothing more than like an okay bench guy. In fact, the development he made last season, I feel like was crazy considering it was his 5th season. He had just signed a 3-year, like $36 million deal. Never really thought he'd amount to much more. And again, the development he showed in his game with just his point guard skills, his ability to finish around the basket, just the craftiness, a lot of the stuff that he's developed just kind of over the last year, what he showed was really impressive and very surprising to me. So even if he never gets any better, still a great player on a great contract for now. Of course, he's going to be a free agent in a couple of years now, which is can bring a whole new set of problems because he's going to want big money. We'll see how that goes. But I think Coby will be one of the reasons to watch the team this year. I think he's just a fun player to watch, especially when he gets going. So I expect another good season out of him. Again, do I question if he's going to take another step? Yes. But is that a problem? No. I mean, he's still good. Again, good player, value contract. If he doesn't get any better, he's still really good.
Another player who I thought was really good last year and a personal favorite of mine, Ayo Dosunmu. I've always loved the defense. I thought they were like the basic offensive stuff was good, but I had questions about him, like mainly as a scorer. And it seems when Coby White was dealing with that shoulder injury, they started using Ayo in like kind of different ways, and they were forcing him to do different stuff. And I kind of liked it. Like when you were looking at his decisions out of the pick and roll or just as a scorer, how do you feel about sort of him long term, or like what does the next area of development need to look like for him to become maybe a mainstay on this team, or someone who's even better than he was last season?
Yeah. So as an Illinois guy, love Ayo. I have an Ayo Bulls jersey. I have an Ayo Illinois jersey. So like I'm a big Ayo guy. But 2 years ago when they signed, or was it 2 off seasons ago when they gave him that contract, I was like, I think it was 3 years, 21 million, because he was not good going into that contract year. Like he was the first couple of years, he really, really solid. I can't even remember what year he is at this point in his career, but started his career was really promising.
He was in the second round, right? So I think he hit free agency after 2. So I think
that sounds right.
Year 4.
Yeah. So like his rookie year was like a really nice surprise. And then year 2, like just as that year went on, it was not good. And I feel like by the end of that second season, he was almost unplayable, which was very disappointing. And they gave him this 3-year, $21 million contract. I was like, oh, like why did they give him 3 guaranteed years? Like blah, blah, blah. And then he came out and he was much better last year. He shot much better, just showed a lot more offensive juice. Again, do I think he's got that much more left, like positive development left? I don't know. He was a little on the older side coming out of Illinois. So he's a little on the older side now. again, development's not always linear. So like, could he take his game to another level? He's a hard worker. So I don't want to say absolutely not. Again, do I think he's like much more than like a really good bench player who can spot start? Like absolutely, you can throw him in as a starter and he's capable for you. Probably not. But again, $7 million contract. And if you're a really good bench player and you can defend, you could hit a 3-pointer, you could run a little point guard. That's great. So yeah, I like him. It was really nice to see him bounce back. He provided a lot of great moments. He has some games where, I mean, he just totally goes off. Like I feel like he like for someone who I like don't consider like the best shooter, like he has these, I feel like these random games where he just goes like 9 of 10. And he does it like I feel like every couple weeks, he just has one of those games where he cannot miss. And fan favorite from Chicago, again, went to University of Illinois. So I love Ayo. Love him. It will be interesting to see where he fits into this rotation now with Giddey here, with Zach back, with maybe Lonzo back. But yeah, so like it'll be an interesting situation for him, especially, yeah, I mean, with that contract, like I don't know if they'll ever look to move him or if they want to keep him around. Like on that deal, like I said, there should be teams interested in him. You could probably get something pretty good. I'm not saying go out to trade him right now. Don't necessarily want to, and no rush to trade a really solid young player like that. But we'll see like what kind of opportunities he gets this season with some of these other guys on the roster.
You kind of touched on this a little bit already, but throwing it into like the Coby White arena as well. Is there a chance, just because of how short the deals are for Dosunmu and then Coby White, and then you're gonna have to reconcile with, we have to pay them a boatload, specifically White, a boatload more money in 2 years after maybe paying Josh Giddey a boatload of money the year before? Is there a chance, like, again, Dosunmu I think would just be available if the right offer was there, but like, is there a chance that we hear some like Coby White buzz this season, given the direction in which the Bulls are headed?
Yeah. Something we have talked about, like, whoa, like we should do like right now, should they like take offers for Coby White? Like, I think I don't think they're not going to trade Coby White this offseason. I feel like the fan base would actually revolt if they traded Coby just after.
Well, especially after what they prioritized in the Caruso trade. It's like, well, we're probably just better off not trading Coby White.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I don't think they have any interest in trading Coby for like a boatload of draft picks. But I think that would probably be what you're looking to do. If you're kind of just starting over, is getting like, I don't even like we've talked about this on our podcast. Like, I don't even know like what a good Coby trade would look like at this point. He's making $12 million. Like, I would need a bunch of draft picks, two or three first. Like I don't know if anyone's paying that, but like for a good young player who made the leap that he did last year, it would need to be a lot. And I just doubt that. Again, it's not going to happen this offseason. But so like this season, like if he does like stagnate, maybe like if the season's just like going really badly, because the question is, he's great on the great deal now, but if he gets a contract that's what similar, maybe not quite like he's not, I don't know if he'll ever be like to what Zach's level is, but with the cap going up, like his next contract, what is it gonna, I mean, is he gonna make 30 million a year? Is he gonna make 40 million a year? Is it worth paying Coby that? And when I don't know how this team is going to look in the next couple of years. I don't know. Obviously, they have time to make these decisions. So, again, it's tough. Like, it'd be a tough pill to swallow to like take this much time with Coby, and then he has this big season, and then you just trade him right away. But again, their problem here with this last iteration of the team was waiting too long to make moves. So, like, you don't want to wait too long where, okay, like now Coby is kind of what he is. And then you give him this massive contract, and then it turns into like a bad deal. And like if your team still isn't any good, obviously, ideally, it'd be great to pay Coby, and then the team is good, and then he's just a really good player on a good Bulls team. But is that going to happen with what they have right now and kind of where things are going? I don't know. Like maybe they'll get lucky in the draft, and they get like Cooper Flag or something, and everything turns around really quickly, and they re-sign Coby, and everything's really fun and great in the next couple of years. But it is something they should absolutely consider. Everything should be on the table with where this roster is. Like nobody should be untouchable. Like let's be serious here. Like with where they've been the last couple of years, they should be open to anything. But I'd be pretty surprised if Coby's traded at any time in the next season, 2 years. But with that short contract, again, you have to think about it.
They drafted Matas Buzelis. Do you have any early impressions of one, his game, but two, of what type of role he could have for a Bulls team that might be rebuilding, but might also not?
I mean, Summer League, Matas showed a ton of fun shit, and I love how he tries to dunk everything, which is awesome. I mean, it's really.
Do you know who I compared him to before he came into the league when we were doing this exercise on this podcast?
Dude, tell me.
I said that I think he has the potential to be a better shooting version of Pascal Siakam. That's what I
Wow.
see. I know the jumper percentages aren't there right now,
They're not.
but when I watch him and the cadence at which he plays, and like, I still see it. So I actually liked that pick. I feel like we've shit on the Bulls this entire podcast. I really did like the Buzelis pick.
Yeah, I mean, considering most people thought he was going top 5, top 6, I feel like a lot of people thought he was going to go to the Pistons at, I think that was 5, and they took Ron Holland instead, and then he just kind of kept falling and falling, and he is a Chicago area guy. He was at Hinsdale Central, I think, for like a year or two before he moved, and he's Lithuanian, just like George Karnisovas. So kind of, it was a perfect fit there for the Bulls to take it. Easy pick to make, but all jokes aside, like, yeah, I love how he just likes to dunk everything. Love how he shit talks. Like, he just real cocky attitude. And obviously you can say, oh, like, if you're too cocky, like, you could get put in your place and you can get humbled a bit. But the Bulls need, I feel like, just some swag and just some attitude like that. A dog. He's got that. It seems like he's got that dog in him. Like I said, he likes to dunk on everybody. Loves the trash talk. The jumper is going to be, I think, the big swing with him. As a guy is whatever, he's 6'9", 6'10", and loves to dunk. He's got a decent handle at that size, but if he can get the jumper down, if you go look back at the summer league shooting percentages, very bad. It was like the low 30s.
The Ignite stats weren't pretty either.
No, for the Ignite stats were good, and I know the Ignite stats, I think you might want to take with some grain of salt there, but the summer league stats were also, the percentages were not good. He put up a lot of numbers. Again, he had a ton of dunks. But the shooting is gonna be a big question mark. If that shooting comes around, given just like his skill set at that size, his aggressiveness, and if it tighten the handle up a little bit, I think he could be really, really good. He does not the best passer either, it seems like. So like the Siakam thing, like, I guess I can kind of see that because Siakam's jumper is a bit iffy. But I mean, he loves driving. We know he's got the spin move, very aggressive.
And he grew as a passer with his counters as he went on.
Yeah, he's gotten a bit better there. So like, it's an interesting comment. I feel like if people, was it Karolinko? Some people have talked about too. Like, obviously Karolinko's great, legendary.
Does he have that in him defensively?
Defensively, I don't know. Like, he made some nice defensive plays in summer league. A lot of blocks, getting his hands on the ball. Like, yeah, I don't know if he can do that, but was pretty. I mean, just pretty aggressive player. He's obviously got to put on some weight too. He's so dang skinny. But I mean, if he does get stronger and with that aggressiveness, that should really help him on both ends of the court. So I liked what I saw. Again, we'll have to see the jumper come around because, I mean, ultimately I want to say bad version of him, but like the lower end is like, he can do all this and he's aggressive and all that, but if he still can't shoot and he's like putting up junk shots and his efficiency is crap, then he's not going to be that good. So hopefully that'll come around. He's obviously very, very young, plenty of time, and on a Bulls team they are rebuilding, even if they don't want to necessarily say that they are. Like, he should have time. And in terms of his role this season, like, I would love to see him get 20 minutes a game. I don't know if Billy Donovan's going to play him that much. We'll see how long Billy Donovan's. I'm honestly surprised Billy Donovan's still around.
I'm surprised he's still showing up to work every day.
Right.
To be honest.
Like, I know, like, whatever. I think his son was like made, I think, the G League coach, or he got some promotion. I think he was the summer league coach too this year. The Bulls probably don't want to fire him and pay him and then pay somebody else. But I'm kind of surprised that he kind of wants to stick around for a rebuild. Maybe they're, I guess,
as long as the check's clear.
Yeah, exactly. So was there the rumors about, oh, like, is he going to go back to Kentucky and all that? And I was like, sure, go ahead, Billy. Like, well, bring it. They could bring it. Honestly, like, with the rebuilding, they could bring in like a young up and comer, and it'd be a cheap option. Like, it'd be perfect for Jerry. But he's still here. We'll see how long Billy's still here. So with that, like, I am curious if he's going to make Matas a big part of the rotation to start the year. I would guess maybe not, because they still do have some other young guys. I mean, I haven't even mentioned like Dalen Terry and Julian Phillips yet as young players, like, on the wing who might get some minutes this season.
I'm gonna need to know what they see in Julian Phillips that they decided to give up 2 first-round picks last year to get him. 2
seconds. 2 seconds. I was like, if they give him 2 first-round picks, my God, that's what they gave him for Vooch, and that you see all that went for him. But I mean, Julian Phillips can really jump and he can play defense, but that offense is not pretty. The jumper, it's looked a little better, but like in summer league, when I saw him dribble the ball, it was not pretty. But I mean, the Bulls love there's lanky, rangy, athletic wings who just cannot shoot the ball at whatever. Dalen and Julian Phillips. I mean, Ayo was kind of like that. Again, he's gotten a lot better than a shooter. Patrick Williams was kind of like that. They just like love these like raw project wings and hope that they can develop them. And hasn't really worked out for the most part with some of these guys. So like Dalen Terry, like how much is he going to play this year? I don't know. Julian Phillips, how much is he going to play? Matas, how much is he going to play? Like I mean, I'll play all these guys. I'd rather play those guys than play like Torrey Craig and Javon Carter at this point. Like, I don't care about those guys. Those are veterans that they can be like vets on the team and park their ass on the bench and not play. I want to see the young guys play. Does that mean a lot of losses? Probably. Yes, that's totally fine. I'm good with it. I want to see these young guys play and get some developmental minutes.
You mentioned before, because we ask this question every year, but I feel like it needs to be reframed. You mentioned before that Coby White just might be as good as Coby White is ever going to get. Are we at that point with Patrick Williams? Or is there, and look, it comes down to just like, will he broaden his offensive horizons? Right. And it's just, you still see flashes of it when he's comfortable getting to the mid-range. You mentioned the 3-point percentages. Are they, one, ever going to expand his usage? And two, is he even capable of doing it? Like, if we're headed into year 5, it's time to ask the question.
Right. We've been waiting for it. And I mean, we just saw it happen with Coby White. Year 5, he took a huge jump. Maybe we'll get that jump out of Patrick Williams. I don't know if he has that dog in him, like Coby and like Matas seems to have. And I don't know if the handle's going to be good enough. But again, I mean, I did not think Coby was going to be this good. So I don't want to rule it out. I mean, even going back to Lauri Markkanen, like the jump that he took in basically year 6 and year 7 and to become an all-star level player, like sometimes it happens. So like, I think it could happen for Patrick Williams. I know a lot of people, Bulls fans have been like, oh, like DeMar's gone. That's what they needed so that Patrick Williams will get the opportunities. But of course, now Josh Giddey's there and they have Zach LaVine back. So we'll see if Pat ever gets those opportunities. I am skeptical. I think it's very fair to be skeptical that Pat's going to be ever more. I mean, he's had 4 seasons now, and like his averages have been almost like the same every year. It's basically 10-4, 10-5, and that's it. Like, so like if that's what he is, it's totally fine. The contract he got is fine. You can probably argue, was that last year was a player option, like that he maybe shouldn't have gotten that.
Whatever. I need to understand that, because Tyrese Maxey, Anthony Edwards, Tyrese Halliburton, no player options, but Patrick Williams gets a player option. I don't understand.
The Bulls love just losing contract negotiations. Like the average annual value on I think Pat's deal is totally fair. He's still an effective player. Again, he's 3-and-D guy. He's gotten better defensively. He's a good 3-point shooter. A little unwilling sometimes, but still pretty good. So like average annual value, totally fine, especially again with the cap going up. Yeah, the player option thing, because then like if he does develop, then he can opt out early, and then obviously he'll get a big contract way down the road, whatever. Do I ever think like Pat's going to turn into a guy where he's going to like need a max contract down the road? Probably not. We've seen him for 4 years now. There's just been like no real hints or steps forward of like, at least stats wise. Again, he has gotten better like with some of the subtle stuff defensively and all that kind of things, but it's like, is there room for Patrick Williams to get better? Yes. Well, I think he should get some more opportunities this year. Is it actually going to happen? I mean, my God, just give me 15 points a game, my man. Like I feel like me and Ricky have said this on Cash Considerations several years in a row now. Like, Pat, just give us 12 to 15 points a game. Just get us there. And then at the end of the year, it comes down and, oh, there's Patrick Williams at like 10 or 11 points a game. So hopefully he can raise that a few points. Again, if he turns into a guy who can average 15-5 and like a couple stocks a game, great. You'll be worth that contract. Totally fine. Whatever. If you have to trade him down the line, that's all good. But I think he will have a nice long career. Is it going to be the one people were hoping for as the number 4 pick? And with like the tools, I mean, he looks like a guy who should be like, who could have star potential. He's a 6'7", 6'8". He's got his tree trunk thighs, and like he's when he does like go hard, he has sick dunks sometimes. Like, so he'll have the occasional putback or like drive to the basket. It's like, buddy, where's this been all my life? and then the rest of the game, he'll take like one shot and totally disappear. So it's been a frustrating up and down experience with him. I would love to see him break out again. Do I think it's going to happen? Maybe a little bit, but I'd be surprised if it's like a full blown like Coby breakout. But again, don't want to say 100% will not happen.
I don't know if it's a hot take, but I think by the end of next season, Patrick Williams is going to be on the Indiana Pacers. That is my spicy take. Not necessarily this coming season, though it wouldn't surprise me, but by the end of 25, 26. I'll throw that out there.
All right.
So we can revisit it. You sound skeptical that Lonzo Ball will play, even though he says he will play, even though we know he's back to not just 5-on-5, but 5-on-5 with contact, which feels like an important distinction. Let's just say he can, like, will the team give him a chance to play? Are they terrified of what might happen to his knees? Or are you just inherently defaulting to he's not playing? I'll believe it when I see it.
So I think he'll get on the court this year. That does not mean he can actually like play effective NBA minutes. In a team on a season, again, rebuilding season. I don't really care what wins and losses. I would guess Lonzo at least gets a chance here and there. But again, like he comes back, like the expectation should be so low. He hasn't played in 2.5 seasons. The surgery he had is like some funky, like I know
Hasn't
he had
it never happened to an NBA, like the cartilage replacement, whatever it was.
It
like,
is some
never happened.
Super rare. Like I don't know if it's like the first time, but it's something very, very rare at the very least. There's just no reason to expect him to be able to play extended minutes. Certainly like not back to backs. So just like there's no way he can play that much to like really make an impact. Again, do I think he'll get at least like, will he step on a court in a regular season game this year? I think that will happen. I have no expectations, but besides that of him like actually being effective, that I'll have to believe it when I see it. But honestly, stepping on the court once, I think is a win, just given what he's gone through. 2.5 seasons. They didn't know what the hell was going on for a year or two, basically. Like there were reports about how he was like having pain walking up the stairs still. Like he had no idea what was going on. You had do this really rare surgery. So I think even just getting back on the court at all, whether it's with the Bulls, whether it's this year, whether it's down the line sometime, like I think that's a win of itself. And it seems like the fact that he's able to do these scrimmages too, like without pain, that's good for just like on a personal level for him. He was such a fun player to watch. He was not the best point guard in the league before COVID, like he liked to claim that he claimed that he did on his podcast the other day, but he was awesome. And like, he was such a key part of the Bulls being fun for 4 or 5 months in the middle of 7 years of garbage. But so, yeah, just like on a personal level, it'd be awesome to see Lonzo just even again, step on the court, get a huge ovation. It'd be fun. It'd be great. It'd be a really nice moment. I will believe it when I see it if he can be a good NBA player again. Because there's just like no precedent for this, like at all. So like, it's hard to say like, oh yeah, he's going to come back and be great again. There's no reason to expect that, but it'd be awesome if that was the case.
While they still have some solid individual defenders on this team, what is the pathway to the Bulls actually being good on defense? Like, I think they've lost now with Caruso gone. Like, you've lost like you have Ayo, Torrey Craig is fine. You have Patrick Williams, of course, but like it feels like they've lost like even that super aggressive flip switch elements. Like they had some core line. I'll frame it this way. What were they, 23rd or 20, whatever it was in points allowed per possession last year? But they had some core lineups that were pretty good defensively. I feel like those are going to be much tougher to find this year.
Yeah, I mean, Caruso is just such an important part of all that. I mean, you look at all the advanced numbers. Caruso is basically, you can argue he's the best wing defender in the league. Obviously, Drew Holiday, Herb Jones, Marcus Smart, some of those other, Derek White, some of those other guys are right up there too. But Caruso's impact on their defense just was so much. Crunch time too. The Bulls are one of the best crunch time teams in the NBA last season. Absolutely insane. They outplayed their like actual talent level in the clutch by so much. And some of that was, or a lot of that was because Caruso just blowing shit up defensively. They were also pretty lucky if you look at some of their opponent 3-point shooting in those crunch time situations. But I mean, some of these games that they pulled out is because like Caruso would just madman all over the place. So like swapping him out for Josh Giddey and massive downgrade defensively. And like, yeah, Ayo is pretty good. Patrick Williams is pretty good, but they just, I mean, maybe Dale and Terry will turn into like he'll take Caruso's spot and be a lockdown defender. Of course, he's not going to be as good as Alex Caruso, but it is hard to see how they are a good defensive team when you lost your best defensive player and you didn't. It's not like you really replaced him with anybody. I mean, the guys they brought in this year. I mean, Matas is not going to be a good defensive player. Jalen Smith is not that good of a defensive player.
No, and you lost a ton of rebounding.
Yeah,
with
you
Drummond
lost
leaving.
Drummond. Vooch is an awful rim protector. I don't see any way they're a good defensive team this year. Like you ask, like, what's the path? I don't see it. I mean, and Zach's coming back, and we know he's not going to be that good of a defender, especially if he's more kind of just focusing on getting numbers, I guess. But maybe he'll buy in and we'll see like Olympic Zach LaVine and he'll be a good defender. But even then, just like they were a bad defensive team with Caruso playing so many minutes and like having a huge impact. You look at some the on-off stuff and just again the impact stats of them, like him not being there and they didn't really replace him. Like I don't see how they're good defensively at all.
Are you ready to enter the cookie cutter portion of the podcast?
Absolutely.
Does this team have any, because it just feels like this has been such a negative podcast, does this team have any hidden strengths or just something that could turn into a strength that you think is flying under the radar that we haven't talked about?
I don't know if strength is the right way to put it, but I think they could be kind of fun. Like I said, fun, bad. A team that I think with Giddey, if they commit to playing fast and they just are running up and down the court, you play fast, hopefully you shoot more threes. Hopefully you get Vooch out of here because I don't want to see them pounding it in the post to him anymore. And maybe they'll just play a bunch of high scoring games. And if they lose a bunch of games, like 130 to 120, maybe not that high, but like, great. Sounds great. I'll have a fun season where they probably struggle to win 30 games, but if they, like I said, look good doing it and they look kind of fun and we see the young guys develop, I think that would be great. Again, I don't know if that's necessarily a strength, but I think I would guess that they will want to play fast and just fast breaks, get Giddey. Because you don't want Josh Giddey running your offense in the half court all the time. Like, but that's just not going to probably not going to go very well for you. So like,
honestly, if he doesn't look for his own shot more, get all the way to the basket in transition, you probably don't want him running your offense on the break either. Some of his transition numbers are just ghastly. So,
well, I definitely did not know of that statistic. I just figured, you know what, if they get him out run fast, they'll pass the guys who'll be better at finishing and stuff like that. But he definitely does need to finish better in general. So this is my hope. Again, maybe it's just totally wrong and just like turning.
No, I think fun bad is like they have. Yeah. They still have a lot of interesting players on this roster. Like for worse or worser than worse. Like they still have a lot of interesting players. So I think fun bad is I think you're setting the expectations like correctly. Like that's not lawfully. And if they're not fun, then like do you get rid of the coach? Like what is going on here? They do have the personnel, I think, to at least be bad fun.
I was saying, if they're just bad, and like Giddey's like not any good, I mean, that's when you have to clean house. Like AK should not, and their front office should be. I mean, I would have fired their front office already because of how long.
I'm not entirely unconvinced they're not trying to get fired. Just looking at what happened with the asset.
Like I said, as you mentioned, like we've been very negative, and it's like, I mean, I don't think they're going to be any good this year. They do have some interesting players and some interesting young players who I think can get better still. I think they'll be worth watching. So I don't think they're a team that's just going to be like totally miserable to watch. At least, again, that is my hope. Maybe that's just going to be totally wrong, but I think they have enough interesting young guys. It'll be at least worth watching them, and I think they'll have their moments. Again, Giddey will probably put up stats. Coby's going to have some fun games. Ayo, hopefully we see Pat take some type of leap. And maybe Zach LaVine will, I mean, he'll have some big games here and there. I mean, Zach is still fun to watch when he's got it going. So there are at least enough reasons to watch where I think it's going to be at least semi-fun.
So at full strength, I have their starting lineup as Giddey, Coby White, Zach LaVine, Patrick Williams, and Vooch. Do you want to agree with that? And then two, like, how do you flesh out, we'll call it the final 5 spots of the top 10 rotation, again, when everybody's available?
Yeah, I think that starting lineup sounds about right. I mean, maybe they would think about moving Coby to the bench again, but I mean, they feel like he would revolt. He earned a starting spot. They clearly are giving Giddey the starting point guard spot. Zach, you want him to rebuild that value, he'll be there. Patrick Williams, sure, he started for the most part in his career. And then, Vooch, they're not going to bring Vooch off the bench for Jalen Smith. So, like, that starting lineup makes sense. And then you look past that, this is where I am very curious to see how Billy fills out the rotation. Does he play the veterans? Does he go with Javon Carter and Torrey Craig? Or does he play Dalen Terry, Julian Phillips, Matas Buzelis? Obviously, Jalen Smith as like their main signing is going to be the backup 5. I mentioned Ayo yet. I mean, obviously Ayo is going to probably be their 6th man. So then once you get past Ayo, and again, there's Lonzo there too. We'll see about that. But I don't think Lonzo really can be penciled in for a rotation spot at the very least. So Ayo definitely, Jalen Smith definitely. Yeah, and then it's the question mark. Is it, and then I think I would love to see Matas play. But then is it Torrey Craig and Javon Carter, or is it Dalen Terry or Julian Phillips? Maybe Billy chooses one of Dalen Terry and Julian Phillips, like in training camp, of one of those guys stands out over the other, they get the rotation spot, and then maybe you just play Torrey Craig as like the other wing because they like they just don't have that many like bigger wings. Javon Carter really probably shouldn't play at all. Like if you have Ayo as your backup point guard, you have enough guys who can handle the ball. I mean, Javon Carter was such a disappointment last year. He was so bad. He was probably a Giannis merchant a couple years ago where he had the big season where he shot really well from three. Last year he did not shoot well. He didn't do anything well. He was brutal. And they gave him that 3-year contract. I was a fan of that signing. I mean, and he was not good. So like I don't think he should be in the rotation. Again, I wouldn't really play Torrey Craig either. I would rather play the young guys, but it would not surprise me if Craig is part of the rotation, at least start the year.
You can go about that however you want, but it's crunch time. Now, if you want to build a lineup, that is a surefire way to lose. But like if they're trying to win the game, like what do you think ends up being their most used crunch time? Is it just the starting five?
Honestly, it probably is. With maybe you work Ayo in there instead of. I mean, Billy loves playing like a bunch of small lineups with a lot of guards. Like maybe sometimes you pull Patrick Williams for Ayo, or I mean, pull Giddey like in crunch time when the game is slowing down. Like I don't necessarily need Josh Giddey out there, so like I'd probably rather play Ayo, Coby, Zach, Williams, and Vooch. Or like I've always wanted. Like I guess we could. I know we like talking about the funky lineups too. Like. I don't need Vooch out there either. Like if you want to go like real small and maybe play Pat and like 4 guards in some matchups, like maybe you do that. But it wouldn't surprise me if their crunch time lineup is just the starting 5. But again, if Giddey's like playing like shit, and like teams aren't gonna like respect him as a shooter, or like even like in crunch time, the game's slowing down in a half court situation. Like if you're just sagging off Giddey and like that's hurting the rest of the guys, and like it's like, here, Josh Giddey, shoot like threes in crunch time, like maybe you have to pull him, and Ayo's more of a threat. We'll see. So again, coming back to it, probably the starting lineup with maybe Ayo mixed in there somewhere. Certainly not a situation where like I know like last year they definitely had few more options. I feel like when they had like Caruso around, and you had DeMar, of course, because those 2 guys drove their crunch time success, and you had some other players you can include too, but. That will be interesting to see. Like, I am very curious because, like, the other guys, I just like. I mean, off the bench, like Dalen Terry, no. Jalen Smith, probably not. I mean, maybe sometimes Jalen's going to be out there over Vooch, but I doubt it. Craig, Carter, Matas, probably not. So we'll see.
Is there a funky lineup that you would like to see them try this year?
I feel like I think I've said this the last couple of years, like going with like Patrick Williams at the 5, playing super small. Like if they want to play fast and small. Maybe you go with the all rangy wing lineup that can't shoot. Get Dalen, Julian, Patrick Williams, Giddey, and someone else out there. I don't know. Like it's just like a weird mix of players that I think like a lot of the lineups they're going to throw out there will probably be super weird anyway.
Right.
So I don't even know. Like I don't have one of them like really like I think I always default to Pat at the 5 and just going like super small because they have so many just like smaller players and just go like all guard / wing. And see how that goes. So I know that's not that exciting, but again, I think they could throw out a lot of just kind of really weird, goofy or Matas at the 5. Like
that was mine. Well, it was kind of mine. I want to see Matas with Patrick Williams. Give me Coby White and Dosunmu. And I'm just trying to manifest that he's going to be healthy. Like, let's throw Lonzo in there. I don't know what that lineup is good at, but like I feel like it would be fun as hell. So like, that's the lineup I just want to see. And if they're serious about being a tank commander, they need to throw it out there and say, honestly, it might be too good. They might not be able to play it because they find out that they're winning those minutes.
Yeah. The Matas at the 5. I can't believe it took me that long to get there. Absolutely. Let me see it. Why not? The Lonzo inclusion. I love it. Just this should be a year for experimentation. Let's get funky with it. We'll see how these guys can handle these different lineups and rotations and situations, and we'll see where it goes. And if they suck, fine. Give me the pick. Get me Cooper Flag, or give me one of those other studs. And if somehow it becomes fun and good, I can live with that too.
Okay, as we record this, and we're recording this on August the 23rd, they're over under a set at 27.5. So my 2 questions to that: are you smashing the over or the under? And how many teams are you confident that they'll be better than in the Eastern Conference this year?
Oh God! So me and Ricky just did, with the schedule being released last week, we did our annual,
by the way. I enjoyed
it. Go through the schedule and pick wins. Obviously, it's 80 games only because of the 2 NBA Cup games that are not scheduled. I got to 25 wins out of 80. Ricky got 19 out of 80. So like if they're 25 out of 80, you give them 2 more, maybe they win 1 or 2. Like that's 26, 27. So that's like right at 27 and a half. I don't know if I could smash either one of them here. 27, like I do think they're going to end up in like the high 20s.
Okay.
So like I could see a pathway to get to like 30 wins, but like again, I always go back to last year. They won 39 games while being the best or maybe second best clutch team in the league. They won 27 clutch games last year. And now like their 2 best clutch players, DeMar and Caruso,
You got to
are
think
not
that
on the
number is
team.
going to be halved,
Like
right?
that I would assume that clutch record. I know because I know that's kind of funky year over year. You can't really rely on that kind of stuff. There's a lot of small sample size and a lot of funky stuff that happens, but I would assume they're going to be a bad clutch team. They're going to be so much younger. They have Josh Giddey playing point guard. They don't have DeMar and Caruso. Like I would assume that clutch record is going to flip and be pretty bad, and they're just not going to be as good in general because DeMar was really really good. So like at least 10 more losses. Or 10 fewer wins, however you want to put it. So like that goes down to 29. So like I do think that's where they're gonna end up. Like right, that 27.5 number I think is perfect because like 27 and 55 like sounds like a good number to me. Could I see them winning a few more? Maybe. So like I do not know if I can bet. Like I usually do bet the over under. Like I bet the over last year and I think it was like 37.5 and they barely eked it out there. I was very worried about that coming down the stretch. So I don't know if I can make the bet this year. Like I think they're going to be right around it. I like 27 and 55 makes sense. Like that would be just under if they went again 10 more or 10 fewer wins, 29 and 53. Like also would make some sense. Like I think they're going to be right in that range, right around that 27 and a half.
How many teams would you be prepared to say?
Right? Oh God, it's like I mean the Pistons, then like the Hornets and the Wizards. Like the Pistons theoretically should be better. I mean, they signed Tobias Harris. Like they have all these interesting young players, but Monty Williams became like the worst coach in the league last season. Like I don't know what they're actually doing. I know they want to take a step forward, but like I would guess the Bulls will still be better than them, and then like the Wizards, no, and the Bulls will be better than the Wizards. I feel very confident in that. I'm sure the Wizards. I mean, they have a bunch of really raw young players. They still have Jordan Poole. I would guess they trade Kyle Kuzma at some point. I would bet the Bulls are better than them. And like the Hornets, like all depends on
If they're
LaMelo.
healthy, I think they're going to be a lot better than people expect. Like I think actually the only 2 teams I'm prepared to say I'm guaranteed. I don't know what the Pistons will look like under JB Bickerstaff. They have so many young guys, but they have some better veterans.
Honestly, I totally forgot that they fired Monty Williams after one season that they hired because last year Monty turned into like the worst coach in the league. Like what the hell happened?
From he didn't. That whole thing was set up. We graded it very highly on this podcast by saying, "Oh, you gave up the money to get the guy you wanted, but like you just kept throwing money at someone who didn't want the job until they took it." Probably not the best decision. But the Nets and Wizards feel like the only 2 I'd be prepared to guarantee, with like one team from the Hornets, Raptors, or Pistons sort of group. Like, okay, they'll probably be better than one of those teams.
Yeah. So like, Nets. Yeah. Good point. The Nets trading Mikal Bridges, of course. Like the Nets are going to be awful. Now they have incentive to be awful again. So they're probably going to be awful. And yeah, the Wizards, I think the Nets, those 2 are, that's absolutely true. The Pistons, I think they'll probably just end up being bad because they're the Pistons. Like even like Cade is good, but like, is he that good?
Oh,
Jaden Ivey, I like, but again, like just the fit there, I don't know. They have all these interesting young guys. I just like don't know if it actually works. Maybe JB will instill an actual culture there, and they'll actually play to their talent level a little better. Will it be enough to get to like in the high 20s, like where I think the Bulls will be? I don't know. And again, you got veteran Tobias Harris. He'll come back and he'll level the ship there as the veteran on that team. I don't know, but Bulls being like 11th or 12th in the East does sound right. I do think the Raptors should be better. I think the Hawks should probably be better. Just they still have Trae Young there, obviously, and like they still have some other decent players.
They also have, speaking of no reasons to tank, their next 3 picks are controlled by the Spurs.
Right. So so like, what is that? 11th, 12th? The Hornets are like if LaMelo actually says healthy, which again you cannot rely on, he's hurt every year. Like they're probably knocking on the door of playing, which is basically what they were when LaMelo was mostly healthy. They still do have Miles Bridges, right? They re-signed him.
Bridges. Brandon Miller was really good.
Brandon
last
Miller
year.
did get better.
I'll die on the Cody Martin hill. Mark Williams might be healthy this year. They feel like they'll be in the 30s if they stay relatively healthy.
If LaMelo plays most of the year, they should. I could see them getting to the 30s, even if it's not like high 30s. So, yeah, that sounds 11th or 12th sounds about right in the East. If the Bulls, it'd be brutal if like the Bulls they won like 27, 28 games, but that was still like somehow good enough to get 10, and then they like snuck into the.
Well, when you look at the landscape of the East really quickly, someone's going to make the play-in by accident, right? Because like, there's not that many teams that, like the Pistons, the Wizards, the Hornets, the Bulls, even the Raptors on top of the Wizards and I think I might have said that, but like all those teams are playing the longer games. Like somebody's going to end up being in the play-in that isn't necessarily invested in it.
Worst case scenario is the Bulls are not good, like, and they win again, like they win like high 20s, but that somehow is enough to get the 10, and then they make it through the play-in. They lose the pick while they're still not any good, and then they get smashed in the first round, and that would just be the absolute worst.
Well, if it's any foul, so it took 36 wins to get 10 last year. I don't see the Bulls getting 36.
I do not, but we'll see. Yeah, we'll see how it shakes out with some of these teams. There were a lot of bad teams, like really bad teams last year. I don't know if that's going to be the case again this year, but I mean, in the Eastern Conference, I feel like you never freaking know with some of these teams.
This was great as always, but is there anyone or anything about this team I didn't ask you about that you think we need to discuss?
I don't think so. I feel like we touched about just about everything up and down the roster. I was going to go look at the roster and see if I missed any interesting players, and I don't think I did. We'll see if.
Do you very quickly? Do you think, because you mentioned this before, that Billy Donovan is less likely to finish the season in Chicago than either Vooch or LaVine? I just don't know. Personally, I don't know what you would gain by making that move in the middle of the season.
Yeah, like I could see him coaching out the year and then just parting ways like mutually. I think they have to be like going really bad and like things are just looking really ugly. I think to fire him, and I don't necessarily think that's going to be the case. Are they going to lose a lot? I would guess so, but like, is it going to be a case where they're like embarrassingly like Jim Boylan level bad? I would guess not. So yeah, I don't really have anything else. I mean, I did mention his name once, Chris Duarte. Like, is he gonna get in the rotation at all? Like, there's another guard for you. Like, they got him in this DeMar trade. Like, I'm wondering if he's gonna get any minutes. Probably not. I mean, he's not any good. He came into the year as into the league as like a 25-year-old rookie or something like that. So like he had like one kind of okay season and he's just regressed. And I would guess,
if he couldn't get on the floor with his buddy Domas last year in Sacramento, I don't see it happening.
Yeah. So, or maybe I haven't mentioned I forgot how to say his name. Anorep Bitim. I always forget how to say his name. Showed some interesting things at the end of last season. I think he's Turkish or something like that. Kind of can shoot, can dunk a bit. Showed some interesting things. Maybe he'll get some. Again, I'm totally fine if Billy just plays a super deep rotation, try out all these guys, experiment. That's just kind of what I want to see. Can lose enough games to keep that pick and capture the flag, baby. That is my motto.
I'm trying to get in the pooper for Cooper going, and no one likes it. I'm still going to push it.
I like that too. Capture the flag. I think there's other good names.
I mean, capture the flag is just objectively more clever.
Yeah, and it makes perfect sense. So we'll see. And there'll be plenty of teams going. There probably will be a lot of tanking teams the second half of the year to get Cooper. But there's other good players in this draft too. So again, if the Bulls are bad but are fun and they show some development and they keep that pick and they get a high draft pick to add to this core, it'll make things so much more interesting moving forward. Where they go from there, who the hell knows? Like if they want to be good again anytime soon, but it'll be an interesting season. Honestly, again, like even if they're not good, that's just if they would have run it back again. Like some people were worried that they were going to run it back one more time. They were going to re-sign DeMar, and like it was just, we'll trade Zach LaVine, but we're going to bring DeMar back and we'll bring Caruso back. We're just going to run this thing back again. It would just been like, I can't watch this again. So at least it's somewhat fresh. Is it going to be good at any time soon in the next few years? I have no idea, but I mean, I've been used to a lot of bad basketball in Chicago for a long time now. So what's a little more? At least it's something new.
Well, you heard it here first. We're on owner up but team watch. That's the minutes we'll be looking for. Jay, this was great. as usual, you're just able to tell our listeners and watchers where they can find you and all the great content that you put out.
Of course, Cash Considerations, as I mentioned, podcast with my guy Ricky O'Donnell. Basically do a pod every week. I know like now are the dog days of summer. It's always tough to come up with stuff to talk about. I was very glad that I was coming on your podcast today because it basically taking the place of me and Ricky having to come up with some bullshit to talk about. We might just turn into a Bears pod for the next like month or couple months because the Bears seem kind of interesting. They're on Hard Knocks, so we'll just talk about them. But Cash Considerations, a Chicago Bulls podcast. That and then clutchpoints.com I work at. I don't really do much content there myself anymore. I'm part of more of the administration, but go read clutchpoints.com too. We cover the league, and again, obviously with the NBA, it's like silly season now with just dumb viral stuff, but
tons of other podcast. What is Player X saying on Player Y's podcast?
Exactly right. God, there's so many. I mean, as someone who as you have a podcast, I have a podcast. There are way too many damn podcasts, and all these ex players saying just the most asinine things on these pod. It's like you can always count on the Gilbert Arenas pod to have something stupid to say with him and
the Arena Ass pod, as it's known around.
With Rashard McCants always going to give you something stupid. Rasheed Wallace was saying something goofy like recently too. Like all these guys just and their takes. It's crazy, but long way of saying go to clutchpoints.com and follow the clutchpoints.com as well. So yeah, that's basically about it.
Well, thank you so much, Jason. And I'm sure as you know by now, I will be pestering you again down the line. So I'll speak with you soon.